Welcome to RetroLogic. I'm Dan Caparello here with John Cummins, and this week we've got a very, very special guest, Sam, aka Third Strongest Mole, with us today. And we're going to be chatting about the Gamegear Micro, the Analog Duo, just tons of games. It's the NES's 35th anniversary birthday thing, so we are all over the place and full of hype and ready to gripe. Is that right? Isn't that right, John?
Oh yeah, every time.
Yeah, that's ready. Sam, you're our guest. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing well. I had a nice weekend, spent some time with family, went hiking out on our old, it's property that's been in our family, actually used to be owned by my great-great-great-grandfather. And we were having a good time just kind of hiking up this hill, and we actually spent some time recently. We found out there is a semi-rare mineral, a Kentucky agate, that is only in this county and surrounding counties. So we were cracking open rocks, hoping to find some geodes with some sparkling hidden gems inside, much like looking for hidden gems on retro game consoles.
Haha.
Yes.
That sounds like a very serene, peaceful time out there. And you know what's funny is every guest we've had on this show has told a hiking story so far, so we're gonna have to keep that trend going somehow. John, how was your weekend, dude?
Oh, not too bad. Had some good family time. My wife had to work a little bit, so that was a little bit of interruption. But overall, when you have as many kids as I do, just having family time and getting everyone together is always good.
Awesome. Yeah, ditto. I mean, it seems like that's kind of a common theme these days, where it's like we can't go out and do anything anyway, so we're all stuck together. Might as well make the best of it. We ended up going to a pretty great little farm pumpkin patch type thing, and they had rides and pedal go-karts and stuff, so we had a really great time out there. My kids rode a horse for the first time, and neither of them were afraid. They were just like, yeah, let's ride a horse, Dad. I'm like, you're 3 and 5. How are you not afraid of this beast right here? Because I was terrified of horses when I was a kid, but they just jumped on the thing and took off. So, I mean, that's an exaggeration. They literally were going 1 mile an hour the whole time. But it was really great. It was good fun. I'm glad we're all getting a bunch of family time in, because there's no family time allowed on this show. We are going to jump into some video games, which I guess you could do family time video games. So I'm going to shut up about that now. So to jump into things, this is October 18th is the 35th anniversary of the official North American launch of the Nintendo Entertainment System, which is just bonkers that much time has passed. I'm 34. John, how old are you?
I will be 34 in November. So,
and Sam, you? How old are you?
I am less than 34. So I actually grew up with the Super Nintendo, so the NES has always been a retro console to me.
Nice.
And I don't really remember a lot about. I mean, I remember my brother playing the NES, but I couldn't really get my head around it until 1992, 1993, when the Super Nintendo was a thing, and I was 5 or 6 or 7, and then I was playing video games. But yeah, I have memories of my brother playing and me holding a controller and pressing buttons. But your memory of the NES, Sam, is probably not too dissimilar from mine, where it's like, oh, this is a cool thing that somebody was really into. I should probably like this.
I mean, most NES games, aside from stuff like Mario Bros, I had, Super Mario All-Stars. But, a lot of other NES games I did not play till the Wii Virtual Console.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
I mean, that's a great place to do it, because the Wii emulated very, very well. So I don't blame you for that. Do you own an NES today?
Nope.
All right. Well, we're going to have to get you one.
Yeah, give me your address. I'll send you one of the 5 or 6 that I have.
Oh,
all right. So I asked these guys to prepare. Yeah. I asked these guys to prepare just a few little things. So first, we're going to just take a quick chat about what each of our favorite NES game is of all time. This is your number one game. It doesn't have to be the most popular, but it can be. It's just your personal favorite. And Sam, since you're the guest, why don't you go first? Hit us with your favorite NES game of all time.
So honestly, I feel like I should just say Mega Man 3. I prefer it over Mega Man 2 for a couple reasons. But you did bring me on to talk about some overlooked gems.
Yes.
And one thing that does stay pretty near and dear to my heart is Kid Icarus. Again, that's one I first played on Wii Virtual Console. But it's just so odd. It has the misfortune of, I believe it came out at the exact same day and date as Metroid.
Yeah, I think that's true.
So it kind of always lived in Metroid's shadow. It was a dead series. I mean, it got a Game Boy sequel, and then we had nothing until Uprising. But yeah,
which was fantastic
because I think
and needs a
I was
Switch
curious
re-release.
about the game because I was really closely following Smash Bros. Brawl and all the character announcements, and at this point, this was the same time I got into Fire Emblem for the same reason. I was like, I want to know who all these characters in Smash are. But the other thing I could connect to is, for the longest time, I don't know where we got it, we had an issue of Nintendo Power Comics, like a hardback volume, so it had a bunch of issues, bound together.
Wow.
And that included Captain N, the Game Master. And if you'll remember, the main villain of Captain N was Mother Brain, but because this was during the time when every supervillain worth anything had to have two bumbling, incompetent henchmen who were always there for some reason. So her version of Bebop and Rocksteady or Scratch and Grounder or what have you was King Hippo and the Eggplant Wizard. So I was like, oh, this is that game. It has the Eggplant Wizard in it. And the Eggplant Wizard is terrifying because in the original, you get turned into an eggplant and you have to find the nurse to turn you back. And sometimes you're further away from that than the start of the level. So it's literally faster to just die and start over. It is literally a fate worse than death.
Terrible. I remember that game being brutal, Kid Icarus.
The weird thing is, the first level is the hardest. Like, the underworld levels are way harder than the Skyworld levels or the whatever they call the middle levels. Like, it gets easier as the game goes on. Plus, you get power-ups.
That's incredible.
Like, once you have the ability to shoot arrows all the way across the screen, it's like, oh, this game isn't that hard.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Gradius. I mean, Gradius is the same way. Once you're powered up in Gradius, you're like, I'm just going to maul through the rest of this game, Mm-hmm. So really the beginning of Gradius is the hardest. So that makes total sense.
I think I have the paperback versions of those comic systems that Nintendo put out. I think it was Volume 1 and 2. I don't think I ever had the hardback.
I wonder how rare that thing is. John, why don't we jump to you next with your favorite NES game of all time? Go for it.
So, I played a lot of NES games. I happened to have a cousin that had a mom that did a lot of flea marketing and yard selling, and she come across like a box of probably 50 or 60 NES games with the NES. So I remember even just starting school and going there in the morning to catch the bus. And I would make sure that I got up early enough for like an hour early so I could go play NES before I got on the school bus, even at like age 5 or 6. And I had to really think because I played so many NES games. But one I probably put the most time in is Blades of Steel, the hockey game for NES. It was like an awesome couch co-op hockey game. I mean, it was way, way better than the ice hockey that Nintendo put out. And I split a lot of time between that and probably the arcade Turtles is probably the other one I put a lot of time into.
Turtles 2?
Yep. So those are probably my two. And I'd say Blades of Steel is probably still my favorite, but Turtles is right behind it. I played a lot of Turtles.
Yeah. All the Turtles gamers super close to my heart, so I feel you on that one. So mine is this kind of obscure Konami game called Jackal, where you are two Jeeps, right? It's 2-player co-op, top-down view, and you're Jeeps, and you get different like upgrades like machine gun and missile and grenade and stuff like that. But and I don't even know if this game is like that good, but really I just have such incredibly fond memories of me and my older brother, who he's 4 years older than me. And so any time where we got to do something together, I was like little brother, like, oh my gosh, he's talking to me, you know, like, like always his biggest fan. So he would let me play Jackal with him, you know, and cause the game doesn't change when you have a second player, it just makes everything easier. So we just would blow through that game all the time when we were kids. And, I mean, to this day, I mean, we played it recently. We played it like last week, you know, so we're still playing it. It is just so fun. I mean, it's just really well made. And I mean, it's not super hard. So you could probably beat it as a co-op experience in an hour and a half, you know, but it's just such a great little like team building, fun shoot 'em game, you know, on the NES.
Easier than Contra.
Yeah, it is definitely easier than Contra, you know, and that's another 2-player co-op, but it just doesn't, you know, yeah. Something about the perspective and like the way that they designed it, like it just makes it easy to kind of get around your obstacles and bullets and stuff. And unlike in Contra, you're in a Jeep, so if there's anybody on foot, you can just run them over, and that literally just counts as a kill. So it is awesome. It is awesome. Well, John, you did something cool. You posted a poll on your Twitter to find out from a few of our fans what the preferred controller is on the NES. Sam, what's your preferred controller? Are you an original controller guy? There's the Max. There's the dog bone that came out with the second edition. There's also the arcade stick, the Advantage.
I will be honest.
Are you just a classic controller guy?
Because I never owned the NES, I'm not terribly familiar with the controllers. I assume the dog bone is shaped like the Super Nintendo controller a little bit.
Similar.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. So
it's,
I would
it's
probably
just imagine
like that,
NES
but the
controller
only one of
with
those I've really
rounded
used is
edges.
the original. So I'm going to say the original.
Yeah, I was picking Sam for like the Power Glove, like he's Power Glove only.
Power Glove only.
That wasn't even one of your options on the poll. It should have been.
Actually play every game with the zapper.
Yeah, with the zapper.
Dance pad. You got to do dance pad.
Yeah, the trackpad.
Or the trackpad, yeah. Well, 72% of our 18 votes went to the original because it is the original. It's iconic. It's our logo. 5.6% said the Max, that's the one with the little wings and it has like the circle pad on it, right, John?
Yeah, it has a circle pad. It reminds me of a more janky version of like the 3DS pad.
Yeah, that thing's weird.
It has no feedback.
16% said the dog bone. I don't have any experience with the dog bone, but I'm sure it's more comfortable than the original.
It's more ergonomic.
And then another 5.6, said the Advantage, which I like the Advantage. There are some games I definitely would not want to play with it, but it is pretty fun to play with the Advantage when you get the chance. It just kind of sucks. Doesn't the Advantage take up both controller ports?
I believe so.
Yeah, so that kind of ruined it a little bit because you can't do like 2-player turtles with 2 joysticks, you know.
Well, yeah, but the Advantage was made to play arcade games that were ported to the NES. So like your shoot 'em ups and Donkey Kong, you know, some of the older stuff that was ported over from arcade. That's where the Advantage came in.
I just want to play 2-player co-op with the Advantage, but I can't. So.
Well, you might be able to do it with like the Satellite or one of the other 4-player adapters.
You know what? We're gonna have to. We should test that. We should see if that works. I doubt for some reason that works, but we should try that. We also had a special mention, which is comes to us from one of our friends at Fernleaf Flynn on Twitter. Says she likes to use the original controller with these grips. And there's these grips that like snap onto the side of a classic NES controller. I've never used one, but she sent a picture of it, and it looks very comfortable.
Yeah, it looks
I'm going to try to track some of those down.
It looks like something someone 3D printed that just slide onto the outside of it to give it a more modern
maybe
controller.
it is 3D printed.
That's what
was that not something you could buy back in the day? I could have sworn that was like a thing.
I don't remember there being anything like that for the original, timeline of the hardware. Could be wrong.
I mean, yeah. Whenever I Google it, it's all Whenever I Google it, it's all new stuff. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe she did 3D print it. I'll have to ask her now. We will find out
grips
and
do
let
look
you know. So,
pretty good.
we're going to jump into this week in gaming history, which obviously we're starting off with the NES, which came out this week in 1985, the year before I was born. And it really only started as a test market in New York City, and it was so successful they had a full North American release a few short months later. February 1986 was when it was released pretty much everywhere in North America. And we're doing the North American timeline because that is where we all live. So if you are in the UK, I don't have that history for you here. Sorry. 17 launch games, pretty strong. They were all those black boxes, 10-Yard Fight, Baseball, Clue Clue Land, Excite Bike, Golf, all of the Rob games like Gyromite and Stack Up, Soccer, Pinball, Kung Fu, Ice Climber. Oh boy.
Ice Climber.
I want to like Ice Climber so bad. I love the Ice Climbers in Smash Brothers.
It's just not a good game.
But their game is just bad. It's just the whole point of the game is jumping, and your jump is bad. Like, what are you supposed to do in that game?
Yeah, it's
horrible.
pretty bad.
You're supposed to jump anyway, but you could be
Yeah,
playing
you
Mario.
can't.
That's the
Can't
problem.
I wish you could just import Mario's jump into Ice Climber, because whatever. Mario Brothers didn't even come out that much later than that. It was like a month or something later Mario Bros was out. So
We could figure out
Tennis,
the exact
Wild
date,
Gunman,
right?
and Wrecking Crew. Yeah, Mario Brothers is so weird. Like, it was like a window of release for Super Mario Brothers, so there's no like day, but Mario Brothers had his day already, all right? He had the whole year. We already did the 35 thing on the Switch, so we are now moving on to other things. So that is does anybody have any interesting or fun NES memories? I've got one while y'all think about it.
Okay, go ahead.
My brother. So do y'all remember, or you might not remember, but you may be aware of Dragon Warrior being a mail-in game that you could get for free through Nintendo Power back in the day. So we did that. We got Dragon Warrior, and my brother would play it, and he loved it. I mean, I liked it too, but I didn't really know what I was doing because I was like 4. I erased his game somehow, totally by accident. Didn't know what I was doing, just touching random buttons. And he beat the crap out of me. Like, it was bad. There was blood. It was terrible. He took the controllers away, so I could not do anything with the Nintendo for like a long time. Yeah, it was bad. So as you can imagine, anything my brother wants to do with me related to video games now, that's like a scar. So
I remember tinkering around with the Game Genie. Did you guys have one of those?
not for the NES.
Yeah, I had the.
What did you do with that?
Well, there was codes available for like pretty much any of the mainline Nintendo stuff that was out at the time. I remember using a lot for Double Dragon. Like extra lives and just made it a lot easier because advancing in that game as a kid seemed like it took forever. Played the same levels over and over again to get anywhere. There was stuff for Battletoads. I think there was even some codes for probably Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game. I just remember
Awesome.
we had one, and I remember we got the Game Genie used, and it didn't have a book. I mean, at that time, there's no internet, so we're trying to scramble around stores trying to find a book that has the codes in it. And we finally get one, but I think we had the Game Genie for at least probably like a solid month or two before we found a code book to actually be able to use it.
Dang. I had one for the Sega Genesis, and it was fun. I liked it. Hack your games.
Yeah, it was something fun to do.
Sam, I assume you don't have any like vivid NES memories per se.
No,
Can you think of
like I
anything?
said, I didn't have one. So
right.
Any memories
Right.
I have are of discovering these games later through re-releases. So the earliest NES games I really played were things like the Mega Man Anniversary Collection, or like Super Mario All-Stars, to the extent that counts, because it was more of a remake than just a re-release. But
yeah,
and the Wii Virtual
Sure.
Console, and actually,
Right on.
I had an e-reader as well. So there were some of
there you go.
those. Like you could play Donkey Kong and Clu Clu Land on that.
For the Game Boy Advance.
Yep, with the cards that you swiped.
Yeah.
Wasn't it like 10 cards per game? You'd like
Yeah, it took a while because you were literally like inputting code to play the game.
it's like binary.
Well, there was a
Kind
bunch
of
additional
cool, but
content
also
for-
not a great idea in the long run for how to deliver software to people.
Nintendo full of those. Just this is cool, but like, did we really need to do that? Like,
I wonder how well those cards
awesome.
hold up today. Like, I don't have any of them. I don't have an e-reader either. It's one of those that I'd like to pick up at some time, but I haven't got one. And I wonder.
I don't know specifically.
Maybe I should.
But I
trade
know
you.
that there are a few. I know that there are a few games that go for a pretty penny. If you have them complete, or if you have them new, like unopened in the pack, they're worth even more, obviously. But some of them are pretty expensive now.
Oh, I'm probably missing
which
at
is
least one
funny.
card per game now. So
Yeah, right.
Well, I know for was it Super Mario Advance 4, which was Mario 3, right? There was a bunch of like additional content that was on those cards that you can only play through the cards.
there were Animal Crossing cards too, because Animal Crossing
Yeah.
had some GBA link cable to GameCube stuff you could do.
Yeah.
And you could get like special items that way.
Oh, that's right.
I remember.
Yeah,
I had a few
they
of those.
milked that e-reader thing. What the heck?
They did. It was.
I think it was
I
like
don't
a
know.
really quick like jab. Like they did a lot of stuff really quick, and then you never did see it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just testing it out.
It's like the
All right, well
Labo of
that is
GBA.
our NES celebration. What?
So it's like the Labo of GBA.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll give you a year of Labo.
That's going to
and
be our
nothing.
NES celebration. We are so thankful that it exists, and we love it.
I mean, this
And
is
we
the
want some
system
more
that
of it.
single-handedly ended the video game crash. I mean, that just can't
Exactly.
be stated enough. Video games, as we know them today, probably, or video game consoles at least, probably wouldn't exist without the NES, or at least.
I mean, it was a
something very
genius
like it.
move to include Rob with there because it was a toy. It's not a video game. It's a toy. It's a
Yeah, that's how
robot.
they-
Sure, you
that's how
play
they
something
got
on
it
your
into
TV.
the U.S. market.
They
man.
snuck it in under the radar. And then everybody realized it was fun, and they were like, oh, I guess we like video games again.
The thing that amazes me the most about the NES is just in the time frame that it was available, just how much improvement the games got over that period of time. I mean, you have some of the most basic things like Mario. Just look at the jump between Mario and Mario 3. I mean, Mario 3 was, to me,
Right.
like, that could have been a Super Nintendo game. If you looked at, just looking at it. It was leaps and bounds over the original Super Mario, and it's on the same hardware. It's pretty crazy, some of the stuff.
I popped off on my NES Mini just to kind of pop into some games and like refresh myself on some games. And I had the same thought about Kirby's Adventure.
Yeah.
Where it's like, this is an early Super Nintendo game. Kirby's animation in this game is bonkers. It's like you like really like see all the little like pixels, you know what I mean? It just tons of animation that they had to like make this little blob come to life. And you're right. I mean, just the how hard they pushed that hardware before coming out with the Super Nintendo was really impressive.
Especially the later Mega Man games too. Like it's just the sprite work in that is incredible for its time.
I mean, just look at Castlevania even. Castlevania is a crazy, like, just the color design that made it into that game.
Well, and like Castlevania
they were really
3,
pushing
you could
boundaries.
change characters on the fly. Like, that was crazy for the time.
Yeah.
To just be able to
Oh, yeah,
switch
crazy.
characters, like, I mean, not really instantly, but, you know, switch characters
Yes.
Yeah.
with a button press.
Well, and that reminds me of the
Without
Tiny
booting a
Toon
menu or
Adventures
anything.
game. Yeah, the Tiny Toon Adventures game, which is surprisingly fun, but also you swap between three characters, and they're all fully animated. They have different powers. It's great, you know, and they look great. It looks like an early Super Nintendo game. So, speaking of Super Nintendo, we're gonna jump into the rest of our This Week in Gaming history, and we're gonna jump into Final Fantasy III in the North American Super Nintendo, as it's known. And we're gonna let John talk about this one for a little bit. This is his pick. 26 years old. Final Fantasy III came out on October 20th, 1994.
So this is a game. I mean, this was actually Final Fantasy VI. You know, as far as chronological order in Japan, but we did not get a lot of the early Final Fantasy games that they did. And I remember being first seeing this at, it was probably like Showtime Video or something, and renting it, and as a kid not having any idea what I was even playing. Because at that point in time, I think the only RPG game I'd ever even played was probably Dragon Warrior, probably the same thing that Dan's been playing as a kid.
Right.
So, I mean, I remember being just fascinated by it. It was just a really good looking game, even for Super Nintendo. And it's one of those that I always meant to go back and try to find a copy of it, and I never did until not too long ago, probably 3 or 4 years ago. I finally got a copy of it on Super Nintendo. But it's a game that I played through on emulation, you know, early emulation, and just really connected with that game. It's one of those where just the story in it is amazing. Like, the things that they were doing at that time, story wise, was unparalleled in video games. I don't know if any one of you guys have any experience with it, and if you haven't, it's definitely worth a shot to go play it.
This is yet another game I was introduced to through Wii Virtual Console, oddly enough.
Yeah, there you go.
Didn't really get into the Final Fantasy series for a long time. The first one I actually played was 10. 10, 6, and 4 are the only ones I've ever finished. And 6, aka 3, is the only one I have ever finished twice. And these are long games that I do not tend to, you know, I've played a number of other Final Fantasies, and they just tend not to hold my interest long. So that says a lot that I was able to finish it twice. It's definitely worthy of being named one of the best in the series. I'd say it's the best in the series. That Final Fantasy was never better than this.
I agree with you. You know, a lot of times it gets given the name, you know, the best 2D Final Fantasy, but I don't know that I haven't played. I think I own all the rest in the series, the later ones, but like you haven't. I don't think I've ever finished any of them, and none of them hold up near as well as 6 does. I tried to get into 7 when it came to the Switch, and because I never played 7 because I never owned a PlayStation, and I couldn't play it. It was pretty rough.
One of the things I find interesting too about this Final Fantasy in particular is how well it juggles all the different characters.
Oh yeah!
Like, to this day, you could ask different people who the main character of Final Fantasy VI is, and you might get different answers.
Yeah, I mean, depending on how you play it, it could be a multiple. I mean, you might even find somebody that played with a totally different party than what you did.
I mean, it's probably not Go-Go, but...
Yeah, probably not.
Awesome. I never played Final Fantasy III. My RPG journey kind of started with Final Fantasy VII. Although I did play Dragon Warrior and I played Mario RPG and Paper Mario and all that, but when we got a PlayStation later in the life cycle, I mean, Final Fantasy VII was already infamous, so we had to get it. We played through it. But that brings up the next game here on our list, which is Xenogears, which came out 22 years ago on October 20th, 1998. And so I played this game after Final Fantasy VII, because after Final Fantasy VII, I was like, I like RPGs now. I'm just going to play RPGs for the rest of my life. Legend of Dragoon and Vagrant Story, which is kind of an RPG. Grandia and Xenogears. And Xenogears, I never finished. It is the War and Peace of video games. I mean, it is such a dense and broad story that just covers like so many different topics. I mean, there's like supplemental material that you can and kind of have to read to like understand the story of Xenogears. And so, but the sprite work is incredible. It's sprites on a 3D plane, just like Grandia or some of the other PlayStation RPGs. It was created by Tetsuya Takahashi, who is now the head of Monolith Soft, who does all the Xenoblade and Xenosaga games, which are now Nintendo, pretty much exclusive to Nintendo. Are they a second party Nintendo developer now? I think so.
I don't know.
Second party?
I'm not sure what second party really means.
It just means like
independent.
You're your own
Nintendo
company.
Publishes, or
like Retro. Like you're your own company, but you're gonna make games for us exclusively. Like that's kind of basically what it means. It seems like they are, because I don't know if they've made anything besides stuff for Nintendo and worked on Nintendo stuff. Like they worked on Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, I don't think they do any games for anyone else.
But the interesting story of Xenogears is that it was originally pitched as the sequel to Chrono Trigger. Then they were like, well, it's too futuristic. Let's make something else Chrono Trigger, and they did Chrono Cross. And then they said, oh, this could be Final Fantasy VII. And I don't remember why it didn't make the cut. I think they had already done sprite work, so they were like, well, we're not doing sprites, we're doing 3D now. So we're going to go with something else. So you just make your own thing. And then after Xenogears came out, everybody was kind of frustrated with Square. And so a bunch of people left Square and they formed Monolith Soft, like right after Xenogears came out. So that's kind of the story of how all that came about, which is incredible. But yeah, it's a bit of a weird slog of an RPG. But I'd still recommend getting through it if you're a fan of RPGs, and particularly stuff like Grandia, or even if you like Final Fantasy VII, you'd probably like this. But neither of you like Final Fantasy VII, so we're gonna just move on from that.
I need to try the remake. I like the concept of Final Fantasy VII, but trying to play the original, even the remaster, not remaster, but the just the
re-release
Switch version. Yeah, the re-release is still pretty tough.
Because you can speed it up and everything. And that's the thing, is like a lot of these games, they're like heralded as these amazing experiences, but a lot of them are also products of their time. Like people who have never played Mario 64 are now playing Mario 64 on the 3D All-Stars, and they're like, I am frustrated to hell with this game. Yeah, like why does everyone love this game so much? The camera is bonkers. I have my own theory about that, but they're not wrong. It's like, cool. Like this was my first 3D game. I remember vividly walking into a Toys R Us and seeing Mario 64 on the like display screen, and my mind, I lost my mind. I was like, video games will now never be the same. And that was a moment for me. So that game will always be special in my mind. There are people who don't have that experience, so it's not going to be special to them.
I mean,
so
again, though, I will butt against that a little, because like I said, I played Final Fantasy VI for the first time on the Wii, and I loved it. And obviously some of it's down to, my own personal tastes and things. Because
and it depends on the
if I
game,
were to
too.
play Xenosaga, I would probably hate it. From what little I know, it is like everything wrong with RPGs in my mind.
It's a bloated story the whole time.
Bloated story, hours of dialogue and cutscenes with no gameplay. Just all of... And I'm still salty about Xenoblade 2, because for some reason I thought I needed to finish it, even though I stopped enjoying it about 20 hours in. But
I kind of rushed through that one myself.
So it really is an acquired taste. And I actually am not even that big of a fan of any of the other Xeno games. I mean, I liked X. I played X, Xenoblade Chronicles X, a lot. I never beat it. I got bored of it. And then they just kind of like it's like too much, and there's other stuff I want to play, so I'm not going to go back. I don't have hours on end to play video games like I did when Xenogears came out. So that game will just sit in my heart and be good there and nowhere else. What else do we have? Some cool stuff if y'all want to talk about. Did any of y'all play Shadow of the Colossus on the PS2? 15 years old today, on 2005.
I did not play it, but I have the remaster on PS4, and I have yet to open it.
That's one I've never played. If I find the time and manage to, maybe that's one I might like. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of good things.
I recommend it.
It looks really good.
It is an adventure puzzle game with nothing but boss fights. So if that sounds good to you, then
these are the people that made
there's
Ico,
tons of
right?
lore in that game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's kind of the sequel
Maybe
to
that's
Ico
why I
in a
stayed
way.
away from it for so long. I remember I had a demo. Well, we had a demo disc with Ico on it, and we couldn't even figure out how to do anything in the game. I mean, we were still pretty young at this time, but I don't know. I did not like Ico for whatever reason, whatever arbitrary reason. This demo rubbed me the wrong way. And I think that carried over to, I don't need this. Because they were touting it as like from the makers of Ico, and I'm like, oh, no.
Is it Ico or is it ICO?
Ico is just... It's Ico, and it's one long escort mission. And I didn't like it either.
Yeah,
I like Shadow of the Colossus.
I think I'm similar to Sam with that. I think I played the demo for it and couldn't... Or I either played the demo or I got it for free on PlayStation Plus on PS3 and just never could figure out what I was doing. I got lost really quick. It's also the same people that made The Last Guardian, right?
Yes.
Here.
Shadow of the Colossus is better than both of those games. By far. In my opinion. Give it a try. Also, Grand Theft Auto 3, 19 years old today. Don't need to say anything about that.
Played lots of that.
And then Sam, you brought up that Fallout New Vegas, and you were wondering whether it counts as a retro game. And my answer to that is, if you can't buy it in a store, then it's retro. In my book, that's just what I think. So that came out October 19th, 2010. What did you play it on? And tell us about your experience with New Vegas.
This was one of the earliest games I got on Steam. Prior to that, I had played it on my brother's Xbox, his 360. I remember just really getting into the whole aesthetic of Fallout. I really like... I mean, now it's almost like it seems nothing new, but like at the time it was like, oh, this like, sort of 1950s Jetsons imagined future, but gone wrong. Everything is nuclear powered, and I don't know. And especially New Vegas, because it's the Mojave. You have this like cowboy aesthetic layered over it that I really dug. So I really enjoyed having my character be this like Wild West outlaw in this horrible nuclear future. So I don't know. And New Vegas, compared to going back, because I know a lot of people like Fallout 3 better. Fallout 4, I don't know what the whole pulse of Fallout fans is on 4. But to me, New Vegas is always the height of it.
Yeah. 4 is just more Fallout 3.
Because New Vegas was a lot less linear. It was a lot more open. You could, you had a little quest in the town you start the game in, and then you could just pick a direction and go. And, you might have to fight Deathclaws if you go the wrong way. But there was level scaling in the game, so it was technically something you could do. And, you could cheese with stealth and things.
Just not encouraged.
I just felt like there was a lot more freedom in this game compared to 3 or even 4.
Mm-hmm. See, I think 4 was probably
Fallout.
my favorite.
Oh, yeah?
But New Vegas was okay. It's also probably worth noting that it was developed by Obsidian and not directly through Bethesda. So it was a little bit of a different animal.
They're all part of Microsoft now.
Yeah, yeah. At this point, it doesn't matter, right? As long as it's not 76, I think that's the consensus for Fallout fans, right?
Yowza.
Just to let my rap copy of 76 I got for $5.
That is our history lesson. Yeah, right. That is our history lesson for this week, everyone. Thanks for tuning into that. We're going to jump into some old news. Old news. It's not new news. It's old news. So Gamegear Micro reviews are in. And apparently it's a solid piece of hardware. It's durable. It doesn't feel terrible to play. There's a headphone jack. It's got replaceable AAA batteries. And the screen is bad.
Is it less than 6?
So if you don't know what?
Is it less than 6 AAA batteries?
No, it is. I think it's 2.
Okay.
Is that how many of the original Game
the thing is
Gear
tiny.
The original took 6 double A's.
Yeah.
And that gave you like 4 hours of gameplay, I think.
Yeah. You had to have the external battery pack if you wanted to get any play out of that thing.
It wasn't as bad as the Nomad, but it was still still terrible.
For the uninitiated, the Game Gear Micro is a Japan-only release by Sega, and it is 4 separate Game Gear, little keychain-sized Game Gears, and they all have different games on them, and they are $50 a piece.
So yeah, if you want the whole 16-game collection, you have to spend $200.
No, thank you. You could spend that much money and get all of those games and a Game Gear that works.
Or you could get a Switch.
I am upset about the price. If it was like 30, I could be like, okay, 30 seems it's got the games on it. It's cool.
I could maybe even do 40. Yeah. Like 40 is $10 a game. I mean,
I'm starting to lose interest hard at 40.
I mean,
because those games, I don't think those games are not.
I don't think there's a way to make this a good deal when you have to buy a new hardware to get all the software. That's designed to just milk money out of hardcore collectors.
Well,
I'd probably spend $50 on one machine that had all those games on it. Like that would be fine. Great.
I think they could have even priced it at $100 if it had all 16 games, and people would have been all over it. But at $50 for 4 games, and you might not even get all the games you
want.
At
$100, yeah. At $100, I'd want it to be a little bigger, like Game Boy Micro sized, something I can actually,
Yeah, because it's like half the size of the Game Boy Micro, isn't it?
And it's a shame too, because like I was saying with the NES games, like I'm more than willing to go back and see these games I missed out on. That other people have said, oh yeah, this was great. I'll be like, oh, I'll check it out. But I never owned a single Sega system. The most I had a friend in elementary school who had a Genesis and a Dreamcast, and then he moved away in 4th grade. So that was all the Sega games I really got to play. I mean, some stuff's come out since, but like if they would have made it like affordable and a nice self-contained system, then I would have bought that. But as it is, it's like no, I'm not spending $50 for a couple games.
So Sam is the reason why Sega doesn't make hardware anymore. You didn't buy any.
Well, thanks, Sam.
Because I didn't buy it.
Thank you.
Well,
I liked my Dreamcast.
Also, yeah, I did too. I have 2 of them still, but I really think that the reason why this Game Gear is the way it is, this Game Gear Micro is, and why it isn't here in the U.S. is because it's a total marketing for Japan. I mean, let's make this tiny little collectible console, all kinds of different colors, and they'll eat it up. They'll buy all 4 of them. But I don't think that wouldn't fly here. I think you get a lot of kickback on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Even if they put them all on the same device, would it sell all that well outside Japan? And if this is something, and if the way they did it is something that, gets them more profit in Japan.
I think it would sell here if they did it right. I mean, I think it would. The Game Gear was not a failure, It sold well enough, and people love their tchotchkes, People who have never played Game Gear before are going to be like, oh, I want to play these games I'm never going to have a chance to play, And then people who have nostalgia for it are going to buy it even more. So I don't know. Honestly, so I don't have those. That's I don't know. But I just want to say, I mean, and Japan's weird too. Like, if something's portable, they'll buy it. You can play a good number of the best Game Gear games on the Sonic Gems collection for GameCube, and that's pretty cheap.
But you're also have to have
maybe
a
just. Well, we have GameCubes, don't we?
Well, we do, but that's another one that's going to be hard to come by.
I know. I'm being selfish. I'm just saying this is what I want to happen. That's it. So I want Sega to do better. I want better for Sega. That's my final offer.
How much? I mean, you probably know a little bit more about me in the market of Game Gear games, but what's the going price for Game Gear games right now?
No, they're dirt cheap. I mean, there's a very small number of games that fetch like 50 plus, but most of the other games are bargain bin. So, yeah, it's just how it is.
That Micro, man, things like the
finding a working.
Did you guys ever have the Digimon?
Finding a working Game Gears. Finding a working Game Gear is the hard part there, John.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm thinking like future state, if I can ever get a hold of an analog pocket and buying an adapter and be able to play them on that. I might have to pick some of these up.
That would be cool. Yeah, I mean, they're cheap, so why not?
Yeah.
All right, and then in other old news, John, you're going to chat about the Analog Duo for a few minutes here, because I don't know much about this.
So,
what is the deal with the Analog Duo?
This is a new analog production console. It's basically another one of their ventures, and it's going to basically play your TurboGrafx and I'm trying to think of the other one, the CD-based system.
The CD-ROM?
Yeah, the Turbo Duo. It's basically an analog's version of the Turbo Duo. And it is
PC Engine. I'm reading it now.
Yep.
TurboGrafx CD, PC-ROM, PC Engine, Super Arcade CD-ROM. That's cool.
And to me, with
this
look
one, at that controller too.
The price point is spot on. I mean, you're probably not going to be able to even buy a used Turbo Duo for this price. And Analog is known for making high-end quality products, so this thing's going to be.
Oh, and it's all FPGA too. So that's
wow. Aren't TurboGrafx systems like crazy expensive? Weren't they even crazy expensive when they came out?
They were quite a bit more expensive than the other consoles of the time period, and they just didn't sell the kind of numbers, so their limited production made them just skyrocket to collectors of people that had them. And really, the consoles are probably on par with some other retro consoles as far as price wise. It's the games. It's the software that is gonna. This is where you start seeing software that's like $1,000 to get a hold of one.
So the only other thing that I'm thinking when I see this is the Polymega is coming out soon, which also does PC Engine. It does not do FPGA, but it also plays like 30 other systems, including like Sega Saturn and all that stuff.
Well, that's if you buy
I'm
the
trying to
modules, but you're all sold
well, no,
separately.
the CD system is its own thing.
Yeah.
Like,
okay,
once you buy like the CD dock, it'll play all the CD games, so you don't have to worry about that. But it is also twice the price. It's $400. So that's an interesting little, like, do I spend $200 and just play PC Engine in FPGA, or do I spend $400 and get to play Saturn and PlayStation and Sega CD and all these other things, but not in FPGA? How important is that to you, really, as a collector? You know, so
I don't know. I've heard great things about both.
That's my question. Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, they're both high quality pieces of hardware. And Analog is tried and, is tested. This other company who's making the Polymega is not. So it's, it's kind of like you kind of have to wait and see a little bit.
Yeah,
but definitely interesting. What?
So that's their first go around, I believe, with the Polymega.
Yeah, definitely. So it's definitely interesting. Well, John, you're the only one that bought something. I think we're going to skip what we played this week because we want to make sure we stay time sensitive, and we have a really good community question this week. So why don't you take a few minutes and talk about what you bought, because it is really freaking cool.
So I got a phone call randomly while I was at work last week. It was my brother, and he was wondering if I wanted to purchase a Rob the Robot that a guy had for sale. And I was like, well, I don't have one, so yeah, how much does he want for it? And the guy threw the price out there for like $40, and I was like, all right, I'll take it. I don't even for $40.
Oh my God.
For $40, I don't really even care if it works. I just want the robot itself. And
seriously,
as far as I know, it might be missing a few of the discs that come with it, the tops, but it has like the rest of the pieces with it. And as soon as I get a hold of it, I don't have it yet. I got to wait till I get a time to meet up with my brother. As soon as I get it back, I'll try to find all the missing pieces it doesn't have and see if I can get it functioning. But yeah, it was a kind of a rare deal.
I know a lot of those pieces. I know a lot of those pieces you can get aftermarket now. So
yeah, I'm not too worried about it.
You might want original, but yeah.
Well, I might if I can't find the original very easily, I might just buy the aftermarket just for the interest of trying to play the games, because I never had a Rob or knew anybody that had a Rob when I was a kid.
I've never even seen a Rob in real life.
Tinker around with. You never seen one?
What's that, Sam?
Not in person.
Well,
they're smaller than you think.
Pictures and show you.
They're little teeny guys. They're probably like, they're little guys.
And then I also picked up 10 Yard Fight, which is a fantastic NES football game that I played a lot as a kid, but never owned a copy.
Nice. Yeah, I'm looking at prices for Stack Up. Does he have Stack Up with it?
I don't know if it came with any software. I'll have to pick those up if I don't. I think I might have Gyromite already.
Because Gyromite's dirt cheap, but if you can find a copy of Stack Up, that's like $100 cartridge by itself. Here's a complete one going for $1,000. So,
well, I might have to.
Gyromite, it is.
I might have to invest in Stack Up for the sake of checking this out, but we'll have to wait and see.
If you get a Stack Up, I'm coming over. I'm gonna drive over there wherever you are, middle of nowhere.
To drive up north.
Yeah.
I do want to mention.
All right. Well, let's jump into our community.
Oh,
what?
I said real quick. I wanted to mention. I know we were going over everything we played, but. I played Super Mario 2 and beat it, which is I never beat the game, so I was just going to throw that out there. Fantastic! It was awesome.
Was it spoiled for you?
No, I don't think so.
Really? All right. Well, we won't spoil it here either. It is a very interesting ending, though, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I beat it. So I'm saying I don't remember if it was spoiled, it was so long ago that I totally forgot. But it's one of those games I played and played and played as a kid and never really made it very far into it. And then I just forgot about it. And since I've been playing lots of Mario 35, I was like, well, I'm going to go back and check out some other Mario games I didn't play as much. I know I'd played through Lost Levels and Mario 3, but never really had a whole lot of interest to go back to Mario 2. And so I just sitting there one night, and I was like, oh, I'm just going to play through this real quick because I knew it wasn't that long. But
Mario 2 is great. I always play as Princess Peach because you gotta get that hover.
Yeah, I played through that. Just it was the easiest. I'll have to go back and play through with someone else. Yeah, it is.
Well, let's jump through the community question real quick. If you have a question for us you want answered, you want to hear us talk about something, or if you just want to send us some hate mail, it's fine too. We love it all. You can send that to retrologicgc@gmail.com, or you can hit me up on Twitter at BlockfortRetro. And this question comes to us from our buddy Andrew, who hosts the Nintendo Pals podcast. You should go over and subscribe to them because they are really fun and they love Nintendo. He says, hey guys, what are some of your favorite obscure retro games? Ones that a lot of people might have missed. And this isn't the reason why I brought Sam on today, because he is an obscure aficionado of sorts, and I just love to hear about games that are good that nobody knows about. So why don't we go around the horn a little bit? What we'll do is we'll pick a game, like pick one game, and we'll go around, and then we'll do another round of one game each as we think of them until time runs out. How's that sound?
Okay,
let's do that, and we'll let Sam go first because I'm sure he has got something.
Well, I mean, I could do this a while. I don't know how much time we got. I put a little list together, but I have to mention Earthbound because that is the namesake of my handle. I don't know how much that counts as an obscure game because I think if you're
so much
a Nintendo
anymore,
fan, you've heard of it. You at least recognize NES from Smash Bros. But yeah, Earthbound, one of my favorite games of all time. Just super quirky, super bizarre. I replayed it recently, and I don't know if I told you guys this. I might have shared it online around, but I got 2 of the super rare drops that time. The Sword of Kings and the Gutsy Bat, actually. And the Gutsy Bat I got from the first Bionic Kraken, the first enemy that drops it that I encountered, with a 1 in 128 chance. So
dang,
I was lucky.
I remember you mentioning this.
And of course, that was right before I got to the final boss of the game. So at that point, I wanted that to be on my save file, so I had to go back to the save point. Because if I just ended the game, I wouldn't be able to save. But
how were you playing it?
On the original cartridge.
Oh wow!
Yep.
Okay.
And all the more bizarre that you mentioned, like, first RPG for a lot of people is Dragon Quest. Maybe it's Pokemon. Mine was Earthbound. I didn't know what an RPG was. My brother just picked this out of the Best Buy bargain bin for $8 several years after it came out. And little did we know that it's worth a lot today. But yeah. Had the player's guide. Yeah, it has barely survived a basement flooding, so that's unfortunate. But
oh my gosh,
yeah, it's missing the back cover now.
That would have been...
But I remember
it's also available.
Cards.
Yep.
It's also available on the new Nintendo 3DS and the Super NES Classic Edition. I mean, as well as various virtual consoles, but yeah, and the Wii U. Yep. It is not on the Switch, Nintendo Switch Online yet.
Yeah, I think it's inevitable.
I assume it's going to make it.
It's going to come. I'm bracing myself. I think a lot of people are going to play it and they're going to be like, "What's the big deal? This is just weird." It's not like, because honestly, the gameplay.
I was going to bring that up.
It's pretty basic,
Yeah, I was going to bring that up because I've never played it, and I'm kind of afraid to because it has such a loving like fan base that I almost would rather never play it than play it and be like, this is fine. What's the big deal? You know, because it's been iterated on so much. I don't know. I feel like I would have an appreciation for it though, just as a lover of all things retro and obscure and weird. But that is a great start. John, what do you have for us? Obscure game that you love?
I think I'm going to also select from the Super Nintendo, and it's a game called EVO, Search for Eden. And it is a game that was made by Enix before they were acquired by Square. And it's a very odd game, but it's almost like, I don't know if did you guys ever play Spore on the PC?
Yeah.
I know that. I've never played it.
You kind of start out as a little single-celled organism, and you have to work your way up through the food chain and evolve. It's kind of like a very early concept of that same kind of deal. You start out as like a little organism, and you work your way up to being like a fish, and then you become some kind of animal that's on land, and then you become a dinosaur, and you just keep evolving up through the food chain. And as you progress, you can add different appendages on yourself. You have a horn or like wings. It's different things, but it's one of those games that didn't see a lot of print. Very, very similar to Earthbound. It's also very valuable just because of that. It's not necessarily.
Yeah, I was looking at prices while you were talking, and that is easily $150 cartridge. Easily. That and there's another game between Evo and Spore that I want to bring up that's similar. It's called Seventh Cross Evolution. I played it on the Dreamcast. Ooh. And this game is like it was like kind of like Spore, but like really terrible, like just awful, and like it's so obtuse. All the systems were poorly designed, and like the combat was way too simple. And just go look up some videos of Seventh Cross Evolution for the Dreamcast and have a great time laughing at a stupid game. So my pick for this round is gonna be I'll go Super Nintendo also. So the makers of Clay Fighter just made Clay Fighter, and they're sitting pretty on a pile of money, and they're like, man, this Clay thing is really taking off. What should we do next? Like, oh, let's do a platformer. What a great idea. So they came up with this game called Claymates. And Claymates is the same kind of animation, except far more kiddie than Clay Fighter was. And you are basically a clay blob, and it uses the same kind of like captured photos of clay stuff made out of real clay, and then they animate it like Clay Fighter did. And then you transform into like 4 or 5 different animals, right? There's like a dog, a bird, a cat, a chipmunk, something else. And they all have different abilities. And so it's a pretty deep little platformer that I really enjoyed. It's got some puzzles in it. And the animation is just really pleasing to look at. They did a great job with it. It just seems to be one of those games that just kind of fell off the face of the earth, because I don't see anybody talking about this game.
I rember playing this game.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, we rented this game. I'm fairly certain.
Yeah.
Like it's in my memory, but I mean, I was so young that I can't remember much specific about it. I was like, yeah. This is the one where you can turn into a bird. And I thought it was like a squirrel, but yeah, chipmunk.
Yep.
It was fun,
or a beaver,
from what I
maybe.
remember.
It is super fun. I played it recently. I picked up a cartridge because I'm just picking up stuff that you can't get anywhere. Like nobody's gonna re-release Claymates. So just played it recently and just fell in love all over again because it's super charming, just full of charm. So that is my next pick. Sam, your go.
All right, I'm going to move on to the PlayStation here, and this is the image I shared earlier. It's called Board Game Top Shop. The Japanese title is Tenant Wars. It was also released on, I think, the Sega Saturn? No.
I think it's Saturn or CD, one or the other.
I think Sega CD, only in Japan. Yeah, it's a lot like, it is a board game, so it's a lot like Monopoly. If you've ever played Fortune Street, that's very close, I think, to the general concept. So this is just a very weird version of Monopoly where you play as these bizarre characters. Like one of them is like a kid who's just wearing a frog suit. One of them is a living cactus that rolls around in a pot with wheels. One of them is Oilau, who is this weird gelatinous blob thing holding an umbrella, and he wears a bow tie. And basically nothing makes
so it's
sense.
Japanese.
And
what you're saying
this
is
game
it's
will
Japanese.
destroy your sanity, and you will love it.
So that's the screenshot you sent?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I was so confused. I was like, what are you doing?
I wanted to find
happening?
a GIF version, because actually at the start of every turn is a new month, technically. And they have these little looped animations that show, like, that's the one for March. And that's just how it introduces you to the game. And like, so the objective of the game is you move around a board, which is a shopping mall, and you land on empty spaces and you can open stores. And when someone else lands on your store, they have to buy a thing. And you also need to restock your store with items. And generally you want to stock them with the most expensive items so that that's the only choice someone has when they land. And you go until somebody reaches a target total net worth, basically. And then or everybody but one person goes bankrupt, and then the game ends. The other thing is when you roll the magic pencil instead of a die, because I don't know, sometimes it lands on an E, and then you have to draw a card, and then basically anything in the world can happen. You might have all your money stolen by ninjas, or you might have a miss, or you might draw the card that tells you that you have equipped the chirp chirp sandals, and now every time your character moves, they make a chirping noise, and that's all it does. So yeah, this is just a game to play with other people when you are slap happy or just in a really whimsical mood. This is not a game to take seriously competitively or anything along those lines. I have played this single player. There are actually 2 secret characters you can unlock if you beat the story mode. I won't give away spoilers for the story mode, but it makes about as much sense as the rest of the game.
Wow. Well, I'm going to have to check that out because it sounds right up my alley. It sounds like the board game version of Ribbit King, which I talked about last week. I won't bore everyone with another...
and the other thing, too, is it is somewhat rife with translation errors. And some of it's just the way the game's presented as well. But like one of the stores you can open is called Aesthetics Julia. And I guess from context, it's like a massage parlor. But you just land on this space and you're presented with the shop menu and it's like arms, legs. And you're like, I'm buying arms? What? And like the movie theater has some interestingly titled movies. This
game looks amazing. It goes for about $15.
Yeah, it's not expensive. I mean, this
totally
is
worth it.
So this was a time we never had a PlayStation, but we bought a PlayStation 2. And really, I got into retro gaming per se, as in the concept of buying games that are old because they were cheap. So we would buy these games because it's like, well, I only get $5 in allowance every week, and it takes forever to save up for a $60, $50 game. So I'm just going to buy this cool looking whatever at the bottom of this metal crate at the grocery store because it might be fun.
Oh man, some of the best games ever were bought that way.
Sometimes you find
great. Okay, John. Yeah. Okay, John, you're up next. You got anything else for us?
So yeah, I'm thinking something I played a lot and harking back to the NES, like we were talking about earlier. The game Yo Noid. Did you ever play that? It was a game about the Domino's mascot, and it was actually a very functional platformer. Like, it was a pretty fun game. I remember renting it very like all the time. We rented it at least, I don't know, 6 or 7 times. I don't think we ever beat it, but it was always in the rotation. You know, we had a rental store down the road, and every weekend we'd rent games. And I remember having a lot of fun with that one for being just a licensed game that, it had no right to be fun at all, like most licensed games from the time.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, that's like a $10 game now. Not expensive. You'd think that would be a little more expensive because it's kind of a novelty, but
yeah,
GameSpot's probably
depends,
a
I
little
guess.
As far as I'm concerned, licensed games were just like so good and had no right to be back then. I mean, there was definitely an era afterwards where licensed games were really not so great because of rushed production, but and then they got better. I mean, we get games like the Arkham games now, but I don't know. Back in I was just always surprised that I can pick up a game like Biker Mice from Mars and it's actually pretty good.
For every good one, there was always a bad one. I don't know
That's
if you
true.
guys ever played
That's
Jurassic
true.
Park for NES.
Oh yeah, we have that.
That game's cool.
I have that.
No. Now, Jurassic Park for Sega Genesis, that's a good game.
Page
Yeah,
Master
the
for
raptor
Super
in that
Nintendo, also not very good. I can tell you that.
Yeah, there's lots of bad ones, but for every bad one, like we said, there was a gem. There was a good one out there. You just had to pick the right one. Batman on NES, for example, great game.
Yeah. That was a Konami?
I think so.
I think it was Konami. And
It was
Darkwing
either
Duck.
Konami or Ultra, or one of their other ones.
Good. So my next game is so I bought this game towards I guess I got it. Yeah, I guess it might have been toward the end of the GameCube era. And I don't know why I bought it. The cover of it looks terrible. It's not a fun game, but I think I was just so desperate for something new and I had money to burn. So I bought Cubivore for the GameCube. And if you're a collector and know anything about GameCube, you know that this is a $300 game now. And I got it for brand new from GameStop, and I picked it up and I said, this looks fun for some reason. And it's not a good game.
No, it wasn't.
It is a bad game, and I probably shouldn't be talking about it because we're supposed to talk about gems or games that we love that are obscure. It's kind of the kind of thing where you really do sort of need to play this game to really experience just how obtuse and just bad instructions, and I'm a box with a mouth and I have to somehow eat other boxes with mouths to get more flaps, and then my flaps become arms, and now I'm a goat.
I remember playing this game too when it first released, and it's bad. The presentation of it was good for the time.
It looks good.
It looked like it was
let me
fun.
hold on. Let me clarify that statement. It looks like trash, but the way that they sculpted things is nice and pleasant. The cubes aren't hard blocks like a Minecraft thing. They're nice and rounded off. That's nice to look at, but I'd rather jump off of a moving bus than play this game again.
Why is it that you keep saying it's bad and I want to play it now?
That's the thing. It's like a car crash. You can't help but not look. You got to stare at it, and you have to face it, and you have to play it, and please don't buy it because it is not worth the money. I don't know why it cost this much. It's terrible. Gotcha Force justifies its cost because it's a quality piece of software that had limited supply. Cubivore is just bad.
Don't buy it.
Okay, rant over. Cubivore rant over. Sam, I'm going to give you're going to do our last one. because you're our guest
I
and you
only
had
get
a
one
lot
more.
planned, so I want to make sure you jump in there.
Well,
and do one more good one.
I wanted to mention Mischief Makers, but that's kind of like Earthbound. It's cult classic status. I'm gonna say Looney Tunes B-Ball.
Yes.
I've brought this up before.
Gosh.
This is like one of my
So
favorite
good.
sports games. Seriously, it's 2-on-2 basketball with the Looney Tunes, and
Yeah,
it has an
NBA Jam with
adjustable
Looney Tunes.
wacky meter. Every game needs one of those. What the wacky meter does, pretty much, there's like coins that spawn on the basketball court, and you can pick them up, and you can basically buy special moves with them in real time while you're playing basketball. So it's basically like
Amazing.
a pool of points you use to use special powers. And there's some that are universal, like there's like a slot machine one that, like, if you win the slot machine, then your next hoop is just worth more points. But then there's some that are like sort of character specific. Everybody has like an offensive and defensive special. Essentially the offense for everybody functionally is the same. It just looks different. It's basically make a three from anywhere. But like if you're Elmer Fudd, he'll like throw the ball up in the air and then he'll pull out a gun and he'll shoot it and then it'll go in the hoop. But if you're like Wile E. Coyote, he'll like strap a rocket to it. You know, so it's stuff like that. It's, if you like Looney Tunes, there's lots of cute references to, like, Elmer Fudd. One of his special moves, he pulls out the Viking helmet and spear and strikes people with lightning.
It's a $20 game.
It's just a lot of fun. It is really, because it's 2-on-2 basketball, it's really fun to play with someone else, to just go through the AI tournament mode. Otherwise, you can play head-to-head, too, and the AI will control the other character for you.
That's great. It's only a $20 game, so it's not crazy expensive, but it seems like
I bought
the kind
it
of thing that
recently
would
for
be...
$20 because it was another I remembered renting, and I was like, I want to see if that holds up.
That looks awesome. For show. All right, you guys. Well, I think that's our show. That was a packed one, and I just super duper want to thank Sam for jumping in here and helping us out and being our special guest. You'll have to come back soon and tell us how things are going.
All right.
And so thanks for listening to Retrologic, the official podcast of Block Fort Retro. If you like what you hear, you can check us out. You can find me at Block Fort Retro on Twitter. And John is at SuperDatFast. And Sam, where can people find you if they want to ask you more about Earthbound?
On Twitter, my handle is at MoleThird. So you can follow me if you want Earthbound quotes. I am probably about to run out of all the good ones, but I'll see what I can do to keep people engaged on Twitter.
Just loop them.
I can, and that's what I've been doing.
Make
GIFs. I
GIFs.
have every weekday for a long time been just pulling quotes from Earthbound of screenshots I took the last time I played through and sharing some of my favorites. So
You all can move to beginnings.
And we would love to hear. If you want to send me your favorite NES game, we can read them out on the show next week. That would be fun. You can email us that or hit me up on Twitter. But you can email us that at retrologicgc@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you and chat with you all the days. And so from all of us here at Retrologic, thanks for listening, and we will see y'all next week.
See ya.
bye.